Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I am here with Nick Ward-Bopp. He is one of the co-founders of Maker Village in Kansas City. I am Allison Bowman. I'm the administrative assistant for the Arts Council of Johnson County, and this is our Wednesday Creative Conversation series. So we're going to be talking about Nick's background and his work with Maker Village and kind of how that all started. So Nick, do you want to start off by telling us about your creative and or professional background?
Yeah, sure. It's funny. I don't normally call myself a creative, but I've gotten myself into the business of supporting creatives. So of course, there's stuff that I make and enjoy making, and I have some creative outlets, in the shop. But I don't have a formal art background or anything like that. I have a business degree, and I think if I would have been encouraged when I was in middle school or high school to, start developing a portfolio or I don't know, do something to where I could go to art school, I would have. But here we are, and I don't have any regrets or anything. So, but yeah, I co-own Maker Village, a community wooden metalworking shop in Midtown Kansas City, Missouri, and then some people may know me as a makerspace facilitator at the Johnson County Library. So I kind of live in both worlds on both sides of the state line. One is heavy into digital fabrication, media production with the public, and then Maker Village is more, sawdust and sparks, and it's a more limited membership, I guess you could say. So
Yeah. Very cool. How long have you been working at the makerspace at the library?
I helped to open up the current space in 2000, late 2015 is when I joined on Meredith, who was kind of running things, and she was, the makerspace was kind of her brainchild, and I just jumped in to assist her, and we opened up the space in early 2016.
Okay, cool. And that's at the Central Resource Library?
You got it.
Cool. Awesome. So let's talk about Maker Village. How did it start? And you said you're the co-owner, co-founder. So who else is involved in it with you?
Yeah, it's a pretty long and winding story, but I'll try to give you the short version. So my business partner is Sam Green. He's a engineer at Burns and McDonnell actually now. But we've been best friends since we were kids. We grew up across the street from each other in the middle of nowhere in Indiana. And some of our early projects together were like stringing a Cat5 cable across the street so that we could play video games with like a low latency. This is like in the era of like 28K, 56K modems, dial-up modems. So I'm dating myself a little bit there, but we did a bunch of fun stuff like that as kids, and then he went on to college at Purdue, and then I went to school out here at Avila, and we talked about rehabbing an old building. That's something that, my parents did when I was a kid. They fixed up really, really old buildings. And some of my earliest memories are, mixing up wallpaper paste and putting on labels onto jars for like a house dressing that we were selling out of our like a bed and breakfast out of a really old, like 1800s building. So I always wanted to fix up an old building. I had no idea what else we were going to do. So that's kind of where it started. That the idea was to fix up an old building. And so I started riding my bike around Kansas City, Missouri, literally looking for a building that was boarded up. And we couldn't afford to buy one. Sam or I had just graduated. We didn't have the kind of have anybody personally guaranteeing like a big loan. We didn't have investors or anything like that. So we were looking for a building that was old, that was boarded up, and we were looking for an owner that would actually let us rehab the building in exchange for rent equity or letting us live in the building while we were doing it. So you would you'd think that that'd be kind of hard to find, especially because we didn't have any skills at all that would lend itself to like the work that would be required to like fix up an old building.
Mhm.
But we found somebody, and that guy, 3 years later, we had finished like rehabbing his building for him. We built a wood shop out of necessity to rehab it into an apartment. And that guy ended up marrying my wife and I years later. So like kind of a lucky right place, right time
Mhm.
kind of situation. And that project that we called it was the Jarbo Initiative because it was on Jarbo Street.
Mhm.
And we learned so much from that. We were able to save some money during the time to get a down payment, to buy a building, to then start rehabbing where Maker Village currently is. So, kind of through that process of rehabbing that first building, we learned about the maker movement. We learned about community shops. We learned about maker spaces. And we thought it would be really cool to open up a neighborhood shop, a community shop in Midtown. And there are other great community shops in Kansas City. There weren't any right where, near where we're at. So Hammerspace, Woodworkers Guild, the Johnson County Library Makerspace now.
Mhm.
And so, that is kind of the short version. Even though that was a little bit long of kind of how Maker Village came to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you guys are in Midtown right now, right?
Yeah, we're at the intersection of 31st and Cherry.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you're close to the Kansas City Artist Coalition's new building.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they're just across the street. They're on Linwood, in a really cool old building that was saved, luckily, and that they kind of helped champion, the saving of as being tenants. And we're just across the way on 31st Street.
Awesome. Very cool. So I read in an article that you um you guys kind of started Maker Village. Um, was it out of the 2009 recession? Did I read that
That's
correctly?
when I was riding my bike around looking for buildings.
Yeah.
I was working all sorts of odd jobs. I was working an office job that I didn't love. And I wasn't finding any like gratification out of the work that I was doing. And I was trying to pay back my student loans. So part of the reason we were looking for an old building to rehab in exchange for rent equity to live there for free was because, I had the overhead as soon as I graduated of like a big monthly student loan payment. So it was really, like, let's try to figure out how to learn how to do stuff. Let's
Mhm.
save money at the same time, and hopefully add value back to an old building, instead of it being demolished. So it was
Right.
like let's try to do all three of those things at once. We got lucky enough that we found Pat who let us do it to his building with him and his family involved with it. So
Awesome. So you guys seem like you are problem solvers and you kind of, take something and make it your own and make it a little bit better. How did COVID affect you? How did the pandemic and the shutdown and all of that, how did that affect Makerspace or Maker Village? Sorry.
yeah, Maker Village. So, I'll give you kind of the lay of the land of like what Maker Village is now,
Mhm.
and what it was kind of before COVID, and that might help to then tell you what happened. So,
Perfect.
half of our shop, the building that we own, the bank owns really, but we pay the bank and have a mortgage. Half of the building is the Cherry Pit Collective. So it's an all female art collective, and there are paper makers, jewelers, silversmiths. Somebody's got a laser cutter over there, ceramicists, like a bunch of talented makers. So they own half or rent out half of the building and run a studio out of there. The other half of the building is Maker Village. So it's where we have memberships. We have classes, and then we also have a workforce development program that operates out of Maker Village. So 3 days a week, we have foster youth that are getting ready to age out of the foster care system that utilize woodworking and metalworking equipment as a opportunity to learn trades, and then hopefully go to like a bridge program, an apprentice program, or find a job after losing the transportation, education, housing, all the things that cornerstones of care. They're or parent organization kind of helps them with. So when we shut down, it was actually really cool. And we got really lucky because Build Tribe, which is the program that I'm talking about, the workforce development program, which is under Cornerstones of Care, they needed a space for their students to continue to learn during this time, because this is their, they don't have a home, right? So everybody kind of went to their homes. Well, their home is actually, with a bunch of other kids. So for them to get out of that space and be here where there's no members, there's nobody else around. So they kind of took over the shop. They were here more than 5 days a week for 3 or 4 months. So it was kind of incredible that we were, had that partnership, had that relationship with Build Tribe, and they were able to, utilize the space, and that also allowed us to, cut membership breaks for everybody, and for the Cherry Pick Collective next door who weren't able to use the shop. So we were, we weren't like positioned out of like, we know what we're doing. We got really lucky, and we have awesome tenants and members, and people helped each other out. So it was really cool.
Awesome. So a year later, what are you guys doing now at Maker Village?
Things are almost back to normal. So, we don't have very many members to begin with. So that's helpful. When you apply for a membership at Maker Village, we kind of find out when you're going to be using tools, what types of equipment you're going to be using. It's 24/7 access. So like we kind of look at that on, more or less like a spreadsheet, and figure out when, people that are going to be using welding, to try to kind of make sure that nobody's fighting for equipment. So that was something we did before COVID, and that kind of really helped us like figure out a schedule for people, so that people could be in here by themselves. And then when we learned more about coronavirus, and learned about what there are ways to kind of operate safely, that allowed people to, we have a mezzanine. And so people could work on the mezzanine, and then people could work in the shop at the same time. And then, now it's more or less back to normal. So people are wearing masks, staying socially distanced, but we just don't have that many members. So it's not problematic.
Yeah, that's great. This may be a really broad question, but what are some of the things that your members make there? I mean, I know woodworking and metalworking, but can you get a little more specific?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And we have people that are running their business out of here, essentially. So we have a guy who or repairs guitars, builds guitars, repairs like sensitive analog equipment for music, vacuum tubes, that sort of thing. We have people who use a laser cutter here for their small business, jewelers, people that are doing wholesale, design build stuff. Mm-hmm. We have woodworkers that use the shop that actually just use the metalworking area. So they may have the woodworking equipment or have access to another shop that has woodworking equipment, but they don't want to invest or can't house the metalworking equipment. So they just have a membership for our, welding area. Cool. And then, a bunch of other random, types of builders. So people that build furniture full-time, people that build furniture kind of as a part-time side hustle to their, day gig. So kind of a smattering.
Yeah, that's awesome. Are you guys running classes right now, or is it just members?
We are. We started our classes. Man, I can't remember. Apologize, but we started back our classes, and we only started with 3 students at a time. So, and our shop is, big enough that that's fine, and there's a lot of volume in the shop. Like meaning we have really tall ceilings. We would open up the front door, the back door, get a cross ventilation, or open up windows. We have 2 vent fans, so we would run those when it was really cold if we didn't want to open up windows. So there are ways we can kind of mitigate, the air movement, which is helpful. And we also have a lot of people who would sign up and then wouldn't feel comfortable coming the minute before the class, and we refund them or sign them up for a later date. So we've been super flexible. The cool thing I always say is like sometimes now we have up to 5 people in a class, but a lot of times somebody's going to cancel
Mhm.
because they're not comfortable, which is great for us and for the people who are coming, because then they have a little bit more space. And so, I think we've been really lucky in that people that are coming, this may be their first or second time out in a class environment. And so they're been really respectful and like are treating this time as like, not taking it for granted, and are respectful of other people, so I've been saying we've been really lucky a lot, but it's totally true. Like, our patrons have been awesome.
Yeah, great. What kind of classes are you offering right now?
So we do introductory classes and interdisciplinary classes. So, if you have never used woodworking equipment, that's we have lots of classes for that. So whether it's like making a spoon, a serving board, a 3-legged stool, a small piece of furniture, that sort of thing. And then we also have welding classes where you learn how to make like a plant stand or a side table. And then courses that kind of combine the two. So where you can learn woodworking in one half of the day and then metalworking in another portion.
Cool. And do you teach those or do you bring people in to teach them?
Yeah, I teach most of those classes. I co-teach a couple of the classes, which is always fun. We have one course where you learn how to make your own picture frame.
Hmm.
And you actually make the frame here at the shop, but the other half of the class is at a framer just down the road. And he teaches you how to cut the glass, cut the mat, dry mount your image, whatever you've got, to like a foam core, and then kind of tie it all in with hardware. And it's a pretty cool class.
Cool. So it's like legit framing and
Yeah,
after you
yeah,
build your frame. That's
that's
awesome.
right. And then
Very
you're
cool.
like, man, this is really hard.
Yeah.
Like you have a better appreciation of people that do it, full time.
Yeah. I don't want to say apprentice. I didn't really apprentice. I worked at a gallery that had a frame shop, and so I learned a little bit of framing, but I was
Sure.
not good at it.
It's very difficult,
It's
especially
hard.
when you're talking about a gallery where the expectations are a lot
Oh
higher,
yeah.
and it needs to be archival, and this work can be, going anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So, you have to. That's like takes into a whole bunch of other considerations that we're making a really nice frame, but it's not
Yeah.
necessarily to that level.
Right. And it's for the person. It's not for someone else necessarily. So very
Right.
cool. Um, so I read something about the Women's Open Shop. Are you guys doing that right now?
Yeah, so the Women's Open Shop is a monthly program that is not currently open to the public yet. So we as a result of seeing tons of people coming to classes and saying, this is the first time I've used this equipment. This is the first time I've been encouraged to use this equipment. My brother, when I was growing up, could use this stuff. My dad wouldn't teach me, or I tried to sign up for shop class in high school, but I had to wait for all the boys to sign up first, and I was like on the wait list as an alternative. So we kind of, with another person named Marcel, who has been a shop foreman at the Woodworkers Guild for years, and she's a member here, kind of decided like, let's figure out a way to kind of, in a small way, change that and open up the shop to people who traditionally haven't been offered and encouraged into shops. So the Women's Guild is now basically kind of working on their monthly programming, learning how they want to, building the curriculum, like figure out exactly what types of things they want to offer, if it's just open studio or open shop, or if people are going to be using, specific equipment and learning specific techniques. So, the cool thing about that is now we have more female members than we do male members.
Awesome.
And that is something that's really important to me and my co-owner and everybody in the shop. Is like, when we first started, all of our members were white male, or all of our applicants were white male. And now we have a lot of members of color and more female than men. And we're going to keep changing and making it even better, and that's one of our goals. As soon as we made we got to the point where we covered our expenses, like we are in the black,
Yeah.
as they say, we're we, have covered our mortgage, and we have covered our, HVAC costs and all that stuff. And we got to a break even point. Then we've started to really figure out, like, what things do we want to change? Like, we're a young organization. We do not want this group in here to not be reflective of, like, the population of Kansas City. And and in addition to that, like, we need to work harder to make it more encouraging for people who have not, like, kind of fight the hundreds of years or whatever generations of that not happening. Like, we have to make an effort to change it. So
Right.
I'm stepping off my soapbox, but a lot of that work is done by Marcel and Helica, Megan, Teresa, like the badass members of the guild. So we
Yeah,
are just kind of here to support them.
that's awesome. Very cool. Yeah, that's really exciting that you have a lot more female members now. Very cool. Um, I think I don't see any questions or comments. Is there anything I missed that you wanted to talk about? I kind of had my questions, and you told us a lot about the shop. Anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think this is great. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to people and share what's going on. And yeah, I don't have any questions at all.
Awesome. Cool. Well, it's great for me. I mean, I moved here 3 years ago, 3.5, 4 years ago. And I still don't know a lot of what's going on. And I'm mostly on the Kansas side. So it's really nice to learn things about what's going on in the city and kind of what's happening in Missouri. So it's really great for me personally, but it's awesome to get to
Yeah,
know the
yeah.
community.
And if anybody has questions, feel free to comment here. And our email address is humans@makervillagekc.org, and those go to me. So if you have questions about anything, let me know.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
Yeah, it was super nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. And I will let you get back to your afternoon.
All right. Have a great day.
All right, you too.
All right. See you.
Bye.